there, because Lavan was a character in his own right. So whatever he did there with the sheep and everything, he refined what he needed to refine on a spiritual level. As the Zohar mentions, that he used sticks for tefillin, for phylacteries. Everything was done. There were many different sacred intentions that were taking place. Then comes beginning of Vayishlach. Yankov says, now I'm ready to refine Esav. I'm ready to deal with Eilam HaTeo, the world of chaos.
What was Lavan? Lavan wasn't chaos.
Lavan was considered the Keser of Lu'um Hazeh, the Keser, the crown in the negative elements, but not the chaos as Esav is generally described. Esav is described that the seven attributes are considered the seven personal character traits of chaos. It's like a different. He receives that honor that he is considered representing the world of chaos, and therefore he needed to prepare in accordance of what takes place in the world of chaos on a spiritual level. The first thing he did, he divided his family into two teams. Two, because Eilam HaTeo, the world of chaos, is two. Therefore, he needed to reflect it in his own background, that he should have, that in order to be able to be a vessel to bring down the light that Esav has in a positive sense. Then he prepared animals. They were sort of sacrifices, but they were not kosher. Why were they not kosher? Because he was not dealing here with a stabilized world. With a stabilized world, he would need to follow the laws of Torah. He was dealing with Eilam HaTeo, that doesn't have any rules or regulations. And therefore, the way of appeasing them, the way of finding favor and charm by Eilam HaTeo, this was the formula. Camels and chamedim, the different things that he prepared. It's mentioned in Deir HaChaim HaKodesh, we saw it on the way here. The amount of animals he prepared was 580. What does the word spell out? Taketh, the union of strength. Eilam HaTeo is stronger than Eilam HaTikun. Animals come from Eilam HaTeo. The source of animals is Eilam HaTeo. So Chassidus explains that's why they are stronger than people. Because they have this spiritual strength from Eilam HaTeo.
But also we eat them because we can benefit from it because they're higher than us.
And right, and that's why we whatever we eat, from whatever we eat, they have sparks that we can benefit, and therefore they sustain us. They can sustain us because they have a word of Hashem, a spiritual energy in them which could sustain us in a physical sense, in a physical manner that could energize us. That's why it says in the verse, "Kelei al alechem levada yichya adam." Not only on bread does a person live, ki al kol meitzi pi avaya, on everything that Hashem utters. What does this mean? It explains, in Kabbalah it's explained, Chassidus, that not only do we live from something physical, we're not living from the physical aspect of the food, we're living from the word of Hashem which is found in the food. The spiritual energy, the spark that is found in the food.
Is the food higher than us?
So the food, talking about the food itself,
no,
the spark,
the source
spark
of food.
Right. The spark that is in the food is something that a person needs to sustain himself.
Is it higher than the soul of the Jew?
Hard to say if it's higher than the soul of the Jew. The soul of the Jew Bechlal is from the highest levels. Right. Now this is also an explanation of something else, and that is the inyan, the difference between this is the difference between Esav and Yankov, how they got together. And then when they got together, it says that he stepped 7 times, he bowed down 7 times. The 7 times are the 7 attributes. He was trying to connect to the world of chaos, to the world of Esav. But then he saw that he wasn't ready yet. So then each one went to their way. And that's why it says over there that the Amosai, Rashi explains in the commentary, when will he be ready? It says when it will be the ultimate redemption. But this is basically, this was the work of this is the process that took place in our Parsha. which this is also the difference between Adam and Behemoth is also interesting. Behema comes from Elam Mateo, chaos. But together with that, as mentioned earlier, let's not forget the positive aspect. Positive aspect is the state of nullification and clinging to higher, even if it means losing one entity, but to connect to higher. Behema, when we spell out the word behema, it is Beis Hey Mem Hey. In the word behema, there's two letters that express the state of nullification. That's the two letters Mem Hey. Shema, in Kabbalistically speaking, Shema expresses like, what are we? Expressing the state of nullification we find ourselves in. Like Moshe Rabbeinu said, when there was an argument against Moshe and Aaron, so Moshe Rabbeinu said, Mo anachnu, what are we that you should argue for us? In other words, who are we? We don't have any entity. The state of nullification. This was the state of nullification of Moshe. So therefore, by a behema, it is in a revealed way. It says Mem Hey is spelled out. You see the two letters. Then comes a person, Adam. Adam adds up to 45. Also Mem Hey. Mem Hey again state of nullification, but it's not there in a revealed state. It's there in a way that you have to find the numerical value, and that's when you will discover it. This is the difference between a person and an animal. An animal has a certain subuneness, a certain humility. It says a behemoth have a certain bittul, a state of nullification, more than a person. And that's why it says, Adam of Hemet Ishi Hashem, that there is a unique quality in the person, but there's a unique quality that a person could learn from an animal. That it's a behemoth, the inyan. Why is it that it has this humility? It is reflected in the name. The word behemoth is Memhei.
Yeah, but in the chair, the chair,
the kisei of
the level, the Adam in the shoulder, from level. Kisei covered.
Right over there, it's talking because it's four corners of the it's four corners of the heavenly chariot. Right, the Merkava. Masha'inkin, when we speak about levels, this is basically, and this is basically also the reason, or conclude with this idea, and this is the reason that gives us an insight why the leaders of Chabad, the rabbis of Chabad, would many times discuss this topic, the topic of chaos and stabilization. What is the reason for that? So about 39 years ago, it was late 1971, the Rebbe then received from Russia a whole sequence of discourses that the fourth Rebbe of Chabad said 100 years earlier. Exactly 100 years earlier. And he discussed this whole thing of chaos and stabilization through a sequence of discourses over the holiday season. So the Rebbe said in public then, by divine providence we received it for this holiday season, and it speaks about chaos and stabilization, and actually the Rebbe also based his discourses on that. And the Rebbe continues and says, I don't know what took place in the world then, but it seems like something took place that called for this sequence of discourses to be discussed. And this is basically how the Rebbes of Chabad would actually not just say sermons. You have sometimes a rabbi that will say a sermon that does not relate to anything in the real world. It is just a sermon that he picked up, either it was his bar mitzvah drasha, or it was another speech that he had at hand, or somebody just shared a speech with him to the email, but nothing really addressing the issues. The Rabbeim, when they would say a discourse, it would be addressing the issues at hand, which were on the agenda. And therefore the Rebbe says, when the Rabbeim said about Elam Ateo, discussing it, they were discussing the positive aspects of the chaotic world, in order to stabilize this world, that this world should be a stabilized world.
Can I ask you a question? I heard recently that after the first collapse of the first world, Hashem created the second world, the second time, the world that we have now. He took the broken pieces of the first world to make the second world. Did you ever hear such a thing?
As far as we know, it's the sparks that all ended up in the world here, but not as he mamish put it together from that.